Okay, we are recording. Okay, so I hope everyone's having a good week so far. I just want to take a moment and introduce myself to those of you on here who don't know me. My name is Shannon Spears, and I am the owner of Shannon Spears Wellness. Our goal is to help guide you in redefining your health. I am a certified functional health coach as well as a certified nutritional therapist. I have an extensive training and experience with helping people with food allergies, intolerances, gut health, as well as having a bachelor's in herbal medicine, and I'm continuing to work towards my master's degree in that. I started my health coaching practice 3 years ago because of my passion for helping others find their individual path to better health, as well as helping them find answers to health issues, guide them in making the lifestyle changes that they need to reach what their health goals were. Tonight, we are going to talk about sugar, its effect on your health, why we're easily addicted to it, what we can do about it. Before we finish up, I'm going to give you the details about my online coaching group that I have coming up very soon that's going to walk you through and support you in detoxing from sugar if you're interested in that. I'm also going to answer any questions you have at the end, so feel free to write any questions or comments in the chat box, and I will switch over to that when I'm done with the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. We all use sugar daily. It comes in many forms beyond the white powder that we often associate it as. Some of these forms claim to be better than others. Some have names that you wouldn't even recognize on an ingredient label. The whole subject of sugar in our health industry is very confusing. Even as health coaches, it's taken a lot for us to get through all of the information to really bring the information to you guys. I'm sure many of you have heard one or the following: it's okay in moderation, your body's not designed to digest sugar, sugar-free products are the healthiest, artificial sweeteners are worse, you need sugar for energy, it can be addictive, on and on and on. All of these are common claims to do with sugar, and they're all opposing one another. Yet one thing's for sure is that we are consuming more sugar in our diets than we ever have before. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, the average American consumes 150 to 170 pounds of refined sugars per year. Compare this to the 4 to 6 pounds a year consumption in the early 1800s, or even the high yearly 90 pound per person consumption of sugar in the 1900s. And you're probably thinking, there's no way, that can't be right. That is a lot of sugar. Well, hate to tell you, that is correct. It is 150 to 170 pounds of sugar a year per person. That translates to a quarter to a half a pound, or 30 to 60 teaspoons of sugar per day. It's hard to believe that you're capable of that, but keep in mind, you're not just consuming sugar in your coffee or in baked goods. It's hidden in the majority of foods that you probably eat on a regular basis. Sugar is added into foods that you wouldn't normally expect, like ketchup, barbecue sauces, marinades, salad dressings, yogurts, breads, protein bars, soups, canned fruits, cereals, oatmeal, frozen dinners. I can go on and on. The list does not include the obvious culprits of soda, cookies, ice cream, but these are just some of the many surprising ways sugar sneaks into our diet on a daily basis. Do any of these particularly surprise you? Maybe, maybe not, but if you notice, this is a list of all processed foods. Ever wonder why processed foods taste so good and why we seem so addicted to them? The answer is sugar. It is the biggest culprit here. One of the main reasons that you may not recognize the sugar that you have in your diet is because it very rarely will say sugar on the label in the ingredient list. Instead, you might see ingredients like dextrose, maltose, fructose, high fructose corn syrup, sorbitol, sorghum syrup, galactose, inversol, rice malt, nectars. There is over 50 different names for sugar when it comes to looking at an ingredient list. A few tips in identifying sugars is looking for the words that end with OSE or IDES. Those endings, when you're examining the entire ingredients list, if you look very closely at some things that are in your pantry, you're probably going to find that most of the processed foods contain 4 or 5 different sugars in them, once you know what to look for. So if sugar is already in all of the food we eat, then why should we care? It's not like everyone is sick, right? And is there really anything we can do about it? Well, the problem with excessive sugar is that most health issues do not manifest immediately. And if they do, they're not usually recognized as being caused by your diet. Mental illness, behavioral problems, these are often attributed to other sources beyond diet. Allergies, arthritis, migraines, those are explained by our environment. Stress levels, response to medication, immune disorders, degenerative diseases, diabetes, and cancer, those take time to diagnose. And people aren't grabbing their food journals at that point to search for the connection on food with what's going on with them. However, there's a lot more research being conducted on the effects of sugar on human health day by day. Let me tell you, it is not looking good for the case against sugar. Now, to best understand how sugar is so dangerous, you need to know what it's made of first. Before sugar leaves the digestive tract, it's composed of 2 simple sugars, glucose and fructose. Glucose is an important energy source, and it's easy to obtain. If we're not consuming it in our diets, our bodies actually produce it. It's as simple as that. However, fructose is different. Our bodies don't produce much of it, and quite frankly, there's no need for it to do so. In fact, there's no proven physiological need for fructose at all. The relationship of sugar and insulin resistance has become a crucial topic of discussion. Insulin is one of the most important hormones in our bodies. It's responsible for directing glucose into the cells to be used for energy. So this is why glucose is important. However, when our cells no longer respond to insulin, our body receives the message that it needs to produce more. In response, the pancreas makes more insulin. Over time, the pancreas is unable to keep up with the demand, and blood sugar is no longer able to be maintained in balance. This is known as insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is thought to be a big contributor to many diseases, including but not limited to things like type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular disease. Now, even after these diseases develop, the elevated blood sugar remains an ongoing problem. The excess is often the reason people with these illnesses experience other complications, for instance, blindness and diabetes. And it's no secret that obesity is a serious epidemic in the US today. 1 of 3 children, 2 of 3 adults are either overweight or obese in the US. Sugar's role in gaining weight is much more serious than just adding in some empty calories. Instead, it affects the hormones responsible for satiety and the feelings of satisfying your hunger. Sugar turns off our natural hunger regulation. Therefore, it leads you to eating more and more. You see the problem here? Knowing this alone, it strengthens the case that there is a 60% increased risk of obesity in children for every daily serving of sugar-sweetened beverages in their diets. It's important to note that weight gain from sugar is often present in the abdominal area. So this is called visceral fat. And that visceral fat breeds a higher risk profile for many other diseases, some even life-threatening. Sugar is a leading factor in the rise in obesity, among many other serious health complications. Let's talk about your liver health. Your liver is the largest organ inside your body. It helps your body digest food, store energy, and remove poisons. Fructose, one of the main components of sugar, is metabolized by the liver, but only in 3 ounces at a time. This wouldn't be a problem if everyone minimized their sugar intake significantly and increased their daily physical activity. Typically, the fructose would be turned into glycogen, and that would be stored in the liver for safekeeping until our bodies are ready to burn this reserved energy. However, there's already ample amount of glycogen in the liver. Eating more sugar overloads it. The extra is forced to be turned into fat, and then it's stored in an unhealthy manner, usually around our waist. The process is the beginning of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, among many other complications. I know in my health coaching, I have run into several kids that are under the age of 15 that already have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Fatty liver disease is a condition which fat builds up around your liver, so it kind of suffocates it. Your liver is the largest part of the filtering process and the processing of food and minerals and vitamins in your body. If it's covered in all of those fat deposits, it becomes unhealthy, it's sluggish, it can't do its job properly, and that leads to a myriad of unhealthy symptoms. To take it even further, some studies suggest that sugar can be just as damaging as alcohol to your liver, even if you're at a healthy weight. So if you take an adult who has all of this added sugar in their diet and they're adding alcohol on top of it, it's extremely damaging to your liver. Luckily, the liver is able to repair itself fully within 90 days if it's taken care of properly. With continuous sugar consumption, it doesn't even catch a break to start doing that. Let's talk about your heart health. There's been many misconceptions on what causes cardiovascular disease, the role in cholesterol, what foods help or harm your heart health. Things have been cleared up lately. Saturated fat has been found not to be the culprit, sugars. Excuse me, my computer's going nuts again. So sugar consumption is a leading contributor to the #1 killer of this world, which is heart disease. Studies have shown that consuming a large amount of fructose, not the glucose, but fructose, can cause a raise in your LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, your blood glucose, your insulin levels, abdominal obesity. These findings were apparent in as little as a 10-week study. All of these factors are major risk factors in developing heart disease. I'm going to include several links to studies on the connection between heart disease and sugar in my follow-up email so that you can go look at those and look into that a little bit further. Sugar and immunity. You've seen my webinar, I'm sure, on immunity and winter health, and we talked about sugar a little bit. Let's chat a little bit more about how sugar affects your immunity. Your immune system is responsible for defending your body against illness. It's a big deal. So if your immune system is going to be compromised, you're putting yourself in danger of pathogens that can make you very sick. We're in the winter season right now, and you want to avoid getting viruses. If you do get one, you want to try to lessen how that virus affects you, right? You need to drastically reduce your sugar intake. Viruses, funguses like candida, bacteria, these all use sugar for food, which enables them to multiply in your body quickly. According to a study through Loma Linda University, 100 grams of sugar can make your white blood cells 40% less effective in killing germs and fighting for your body. On top of already putting your body in a stressed and irritated state, sugar directly affects your main line of defense and your immunity. The most alarming thing about this is that sugar's crippling effects stay present in your body for up to 5 hours after you consume it. So if you're steadily consuming sugar all day long in the foods you eat, your body is never getting a break from the effects of sugar. Think about that for a minute. You're never giving your body a break. When we talk about kids in school and their focus and their behavior, this is a major contributor. Let's talk about cancer. Kim, can you hear me okay? Molly, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, we'll talk about cancer a little bit. It's hard to believe that something like cancer that's so prevalent in our everyday diets can be caused by sugar, okay? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it is true. Cancer is uncontrolled growth and the multiplication of cells. It's also one of the leading causes of death worldwide. Insulin is one of the biggest things in how sugar is related with cancer issues, okay? Insulin is responsible, it's one of the main hormones responsible for regulating the growth of these cells. It's been concluded that having constantly elevated insulin levels will indeed contribute to cancer. You remember what I said just a few minutes ago about insulin and sugar. Okay, consuming sugar raises your insulin levels, but now there's a considerable amount of evidence how this contributes to the cancer risk and the progression of cancer. We also just talked about how viruses, bacteria, and fungus all feed on sugar and they grow quickly and multiply. This is the same thing with cancer cells. Sugar feeds cancer cell growth. You may notice when you're coming down with a cold, you start to crave sugar more than usual. You kind of want to go after those sweets or something easy, processed, okay? Those viruses, the bacteria, or in this instant cancer cells, they're sending messages to your brain to bring in more sugar, more refined sugar. That way they can multiply and they can multiply quickly. Instead of feeding into those cravings with sugar, it's important to instead remember to eat immune boosting foods that contain no sugar or natural sugars so that your immune system is empowered and it can get back to work and fight off those diseases. I have several links that are talking about the cancer and sugar connection, as it's a subject that I get pretty deep about. It's something I have a passion for. And I'll be including a couple in the email along with the video link later this evening as well. Sugar and brain. Sugar affects our brain quite significantly. Studies have shown that sugar literally slows down the brain's function. It hinders new learning. It decreases memory recall. And there's also strong connections of high sugar intake. The prevalence of depression and anxiety is high as well. What do you think of when you think of a sugar crash? Irritability, decreased mood, brain fog, fatigue. Imagine that never going away. Foods rich in sugar disrupt our brain's neurotransmitters that work to stabilize our moods. If we're continually disrupting the function of these receptors, we no longer have the control over our moods like we normally would. According to Dr. Karazian, a functional medicine expert and author, this is a huge contribution to chronic depression and anxiety. Sugar also affects our gut health. Why is this important when we're talking about our brain health? Because our neurotransmitters are actually created in our guts. Then they're transported to the brain for use. If our gut is unhealthy, the new neurotransmitters that are being produced are unhealthy, slow, sluggish. Therefore, they're contributing to even more depression, mental fog, and anxiety. I've got a great YouTube video on sugar in your brain that I will include the link to as well. It's pretty interesting. Are you addicted? Sometimes we use the word addiction lightly. Saying you're addicted to your favorite food, for example, isn't necessarily encompassing the real meaning of the word. According to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory, and related circuitry. Dysfunction in these circuits leads to a characteristic biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in an individual pathologically pursuing reward or relief by substance use and other behaviors, okay? Addiction is characterized by the inability to consistently abstain, impairment in behavioral control, craving, diminished recognition of significant problems with one's behavior in interpersonal relationships, and a dysfunctional emotional response. So, like other chronic diseases, addiction often involves cycles of relapse and remission, okay? Without treatment or engagement in a recovery activity, addiction is progressive and it results to disability or premature death. Now, this is a pretty long definition, I know, but it's important to really understand what we're talking about when we say sugar is addicting. Dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's responsible for controlling the reward and the pleasure responses of the brain. When you eat a lot of sugar, a massive amount of dopamine is released into your brain. So as you continue to consume sugar, the dopamine receptors become less powerful making the response less effective. More sugar is now needed to create that same euphoric, happy feeling dopamine reaction. This continues into a vicious cycle, much like what happens with a drug addiction. In fact, a popular study proved that the addictive qualities in sugar with rats and Oreos, the pleasure regions of the rats' brains, which is where the dopamine takes effect, were significantly more active when exposed to Oreo cookies compared to being exposed to cocaine. I've included in the email to you tonight the information about that study so that you can go look at that. It's pretty interesting. A later study also showed that the brains of people with food addictions reacted to sugar the same way as drug addicts would react to drugs, or an alcoholic would react to alcohol. Now, this is truly proof that sugar can take over our brain chemistry and deliberately make us crave and eat more of it. So if you're struggling with sugar and you've tried before to quit and get off of it, now you have a little bit better understanding of why it's so difficult and why it's something that you may need to do with being held accountable by somebody else. Now, while sugar is obviously a negative contribution to our health and our lives, not all sugars are created equally. Some are much worse for us than others, and of course, vice versa, there's some that are better for us. So I'm going to go and talk through some of those sugars that you definitely need to look at avoiding in your diet, as well as recommend some healthier alternatives for you. Do you currently use any sugar alternatives? If you do, feel free to pop them in the chat. If possible, really want to stay clear of these, avoid these products whenever you can. A lot of these products are even in things like gum. If you read the ingredients for gum, candies, things like that, they are in there. Aspartame is one. This is also known as Equal, those little blue packets you see in restaurants. This chemical sweetener is best known for its appearance in diet sodas, lots of gums, candies. Some people can tolerate it well in the short term, while others report migraines, digestive distress. This is actually also the artificial sweetener that has a connection with seizures. Regardless of the initial reaction, aspartame has been proven to be pretty dangerous in isolated situations. For example, the University of Liverpool conducted a study where aspartame was mixed with a common food coloring. The result? Clear toxicity immediately to the brain. So I deal a lot with kids' behavioral issues and dyes in foods. And this is something that I've seen and I've been able to help parents see as well by removing the dyes and the artificial sweeteners from their diet, because it's when you have like a blue dye, you have aspartame, so that's going to be contained in a candy, sometimes a juice and things like that. You can see an immediate reaction in that child's behavior. Additionally, researchers found that when aspartame breaks down, it creates formaldehyde, a well-known carcinogen or cancer-causing chemical. This is something that your body can't get rid of, and it is stored in your fat reserves in your body. Another one is saccharin. This is also known as Sweet and Low, those little pink packets in your restaurants. Today, saccharin is commonly manufactured by combining anthracic acid, which is a corrosive agent for metal, also with nitrous acid, sulfur dioxide, chlorine, and ammonia. What is the two chemicals that we are told never to mix in our house because it creates a toxic gas for us and can kill you? Well, that's in saccharin. Many countries have actually banned saccharin from being offered to the public. They banned it completely. The US is not one of those. They banned it for a short time and then the FDA brought it back. Definitely want to stay away from that. Sucralose is another. It's commonly known by the brand name Splenda. We see a lot of it around now. It's supposed to be the healthy artificial sweetener. It's processed using chlorine. Researchers are also finding that the waste of those consuming the sugar cannot be broken down in the wastewater treatment centers. Okay, so imagine what that means for the inside of your bodies. If your waste can't be broken down by chemicals in a wastewater treatment facility, your body can't break it down either. Our livers don't also do not recognize any of these artificial sweeteners and therefore can't process them. So they're sitting there in your fat reserves and a lot of times being reprocessed through your body over and over because your liver is constantly trying to kick them out. High fructose corn syrup is one that we've all seen the commercials about, the bickering back and forth, whether it's healthy, whether it's not healthy. So it's definitely one that's more challenging to avoid because it's in almost everything. But it plays a huge role in the fat buildup around the liver, your leptin resistance, and major weight gain. A study even found that high fructose corn syrup is sometimes laced with mercury. Mercury is a heavy metal that has been linked to heart disease issues and developmental disorders like autism. So let's take a look at some of the healthier alternatives. Some safer alternatives would be things like stevia. You've all probably heard of stevia. It's a sweetener, an extract made from herbs. Stevia is actually an herbal plant. It's actually been shown to help balance fasting blood sugar levels, cholesterol, insulin resistance, and blood pressure. However, it is important to pay attention to the source of stevia. You want to make sure that it is a pure form, that there's nothing else added to it, and you want to be going with a non-GMO organic, okay? Coconut sugar is another one. It's my personal favorite. It's unrefined. It's a natural sweetener. It actually comes from the blossoms of the coconut tree. It contains all the vitamins and minerals. It's low glycemic. Therefore, it doesn't contribute to your strong fluctuations in blood sugar and insulin, like other refined added sugars. Raw honey. Honey has less fructose than other forms of sugar and provides other health benefits, including promoting heart health, fighting inflammation, fighting viruses, and giving you added minerals needed by your body. But as always, you have to remember, yes, these may be healthier options, but you have to use them in moderation. So just keep that in mind. These alternatives still break down to glucose and fructose in your body. So you need to use it in moderation so you don't overload your body with the fructose. So although it's ideal, it's not practical to plan to cut sugar out entirely. Again, our bodies need the glucose, not necessarily fructose. Our body that's how it makes its energy is on glucose, right? Obviously, sugar's hiding in nearly everything, but finding healthier alternatives, practicing moderation, being aware of the dangers, these are the best ways to take action in the case against sugar. I know I've shared a lot of information with you tonight, but that's also the reason why I record it. And I plan on sending you the replay so you can go back through and go over some of the information that I told you. Changing your eating habits, taking control of your health, this all requires a lot of effort and control, but it can be incredibly rewarding. You will experience a higher quality of life. You'll be able to maintain a healthier weight, have more natural energy. You can prevent serious illness. There's so much value in kicking sugar to the curb and becoming the healthiest version of you. If you feel like you need support on phasing sugar out of your diet, I have a wonderful option for you. On November 15th, I'm actually going to be running my final sugar detox challenge for the year. During this program, you're able to get complete support by me for 30 days on a daily basis. I've been through this program myself. I've taken my family through it. I've also successfully coached multiple groups through it. From the preparation phase, which is 7 days before the detox, all the way through the post-detox phase, which is also 7 days, and then 21 days for the actual detox. You're going to learn a ton of information from me. You're learning new lifelong eating habits, easy meal prepping, easy meal planning, education on reading labels, support in making healthy choices when dining out during the challenge. So you're not limited completely. We still can go out and have fun while on this challenge. You're going to get guidance in cleaning out your pantry and your fridge. I'm not going to ask you to throw everything in it away. I'm just going to simply ask you to set it aside while you complete the challenge. And then you decide if you want to go back to it. You'll also get access to easy recipes, recipe sources, meal ideas for you to integrate during your challenge, as well as a shopping list template. And you'll get support while getting to the root of issues like food cravings and emotional eating. You're also going to get access to my private Facebook support group where I have daily posts, weekly videos with tips, resources, motivation, and support during the challenge. Once registration is complete, you'll be added to that Facebook group. When the challenge is over, then you will be removed from it. Each participant will be required to purchase a workbook used along with this challenge. The reason I do this is because this workbook helps you dive deeper into the emotional portions of cravings and how you think about food, as well as guiding you through some daily questions and journaling your detox journey. You will receive a link to purchase that workbook via Amazon. It's the cheapest place I've been able to find it when you get your welcome email. It's less than $20 for the workbook, and it's quickly shipped in a day or two. This is the absolute last time that I'm going to be offering the registration to this challenge at $85. That's $2.65 a day to better your health, okay? After January 1st, increasing the price to $197. I'm going to be running this group 3 times next year. It's been in big demand. I'm only going to do it 3 times, and I allow about 20 people into each group. I'll be running it in January, another one before the summer, and then another one in the fall. Now, I don't want you to put this decision off because of price. I want you to ask yourself this. How much is taking a big step like this to change your health and have 110% support on a daily for 30 days worth to you? To have that change in your life, to be able to finally take a step forward. How much is that worth to you? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down this presentation on the slides, and I'm going to go ahead and include the link so that you can register. You can click that link to register for this challenge. Like I said, it starts on November 15th. I want people to be registered somewhere around the 13th is probably when I will shut it off. So give me just 1 second. And we'll go ahead and put this in here. Maybe. Okay. Here it is. Gotta love when computers don't work with you. Okay. Here we go. Kim, can you see that? Okay, good. Okay, so that is the end of tonight's presentation, but I want to jump on here and see if you have any questions. I will go ahead and unmute anybody if they have any questions, or you can put questions in the chat. So who's got questions? Kim, do you have any questions? Molly, do you have any questions? Anybody else?
I'm thinking.
It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information to process.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just to learn to take it, one step at a time. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but that's why I offer my challenge. And there's going to be all of the links that I mentioned in the presentation. I will include them in the email tonight. It'll go out in a couple of hours. So if nobody has any questions, then I'll go ahead and end. That way I can get all of that out to you. Okay. All right.
I just want to say thank you very much. I learned so much about sugar. And even just particularly what those artificial sweeteners, like how chemically dangerous they are. It's definitely, an eye-opener, and they're banned and then they come back, and how it's just terrible because they're everywhere. You go out to dinner and they're still sitting on that table.
Yes, I agree. And I do the same thing, and it's hard for me even as a health coach to look around and see people putting those in, and I just want to stop, don't do that. But it is a personal choice, and it's about education. There's so much of this. People don't know, and they're not educated, and a lot of the education is hidden, and that's my goal as a health coach, to bring that education to you so that you are fully informed and you can make the decision. But I'm also here to offer options to help you out. if you make the decision that, hey, I need to stop this, I need to get off this roller coaster. So, all right, well, thank you. And thank you everybody for being here tonight and joining me. I have enjoyed my time with you and educating you about all of this. If you guys happen to come up with questions later, feel free to reply to the email. You can also catch me on Facebook. If you look on Facebook, you type in Shannon Spears Wellness. There's two that pop up. One is my actual business page that you can like. The other is my private group. So make sure that you're liking my personal business page because I will not add you to my private group. That is for my clients only, and I'm very protective of them. I like to keep them private. So, all right. Well, thanks for being here, everybody, and I hope you have a great evening and the rest of your week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.